Bueller. Hey everyone, welcome to Monday Matters. I'm Justin. I'm not normally here. I'm not JD. This is Pastor Jim. We're going to be talking a little bit about the services this weekend and being available, which is why I'm here right now.
Yeah. Thanks for filling in. Usually Justin's behind the camera and making things happen. And without him, we wouldn't have Monday Matters. But today we have his lovely face in front of the camera. Yeah.
So hopefully I don't break the camera, but we'll see how this goes.
That's quite a hat. So what does your hat say there?
It's Love Walla Walla. So it's we here at Blue Mountain try and do some events throughout the year to love on the city here.
Yeah.
So that's, once again, we try and make ourselves available to get out there and do things. You'll have a continuing theme today of available, but before we kind of get into what Mike Williams talked about this weekend.
Wallace.
Mike Wallace.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know what this other goes too easy. How was Skyrocket?
Yeah, so typically I'm speaking here on a Sunday, and so I don't have the opportunity to go to Skyrocket unless I'm speaking there. And so I've only done that one time. So this Sunday I was there as a participant, and it was great. It was great.
So at Blue Mountain we had a guest speaker.
Yes.
And
Mike Wallace.
Mike Wallace. Yeah, I'm gonna goof that up a bunch.
Yeah.
Of times.
So Mike Wallace. Mike is the former pastor at Prescott Community Church, which has now it was the church in Prescott, and then they donated whenever they closed, they donated their facilities to Blue Mountain, and that's where we launched Skyrocket out of. So, but Mike has been here at Blue Mountain for probably 10 years or something like that, maybe more.
Mike did a fabulous job this weekend. It was really nice. It's always refreshing. I enjoy hearing different people. Nothing against you when you preach,
it's great. That's great.
But hearing a different perspective. He talked over Acts 1 through 11.
Right. Kicked off our new series.
Series together. I think my big takeaway, or like the whole point of it, was capable versus available.
Capable of like a certain task versus available to do a task.
Correct.
Okay.
So if maybe one of the examples he used was someone performing in the worship band.
Okay.
There's a lot of nerves that usually go on the first time that you sing, play music, or whatever. But you get up on stage and you make yourself available to do it. Even though you may not be 100% confident that you're capable, or maybe you don't feel that you're as good as the other people that are doing it. Okay. But making yourself available to that blessing.
Yeah. Available. Yeah. There's a level of capability that has to be there when you're leading worship, but you don't necessarily need to be the most capable person.
Where do you think you draw that line? Where does, if capable comes into play a little bit?
Yeah.
How do you take that into your week, or your choices of being available?
That's a really good question, because what we really need is people to be available, and a lot of times we're busy. We're doing this and that, and we're just not available. In fact, most people aren't very available to outside things, especially to serve a church. They figure, a lot of people kind of figure, I'm going to go to church to be served, not I'm going to go to church to serve in some way. And so our pool of available people is pretty small in that sense. What was your question?
Well, just where does that line? So, okay, we can go back to the worship thing, because that's something I think a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
I'm available to play the drums.
Okay, good.
I have never played the drums in my life.
Yeah, right.
So where does that line between capable and available? Because I'm assuming I'll probably be more distracting than I am in the, So how do we make that determination of, we need a little bit of capability,
right,
to be available? So what does that look like?
Yeah, I think the big piece is, are you available? I think that's the key. So that's where you want to start is, am I available to serve in an area that's needed? And so then once you determine, hey, there's a need, and I can do that. I think that's the point. It's not just there's a need and I can do that, but I should do that, but I'm not very good at it. Well, actually, that's okay. But if I'm just awful at it, like for me to play the drums, I can't keep a beat. You know, I'm even I have to kind of watch people as they clap and just kind of, all right, I think okay, I'm on the beat now. You know, so you don't want me playing the drums. You know, because I'm not capable. So there's a line. You know, but if I think drums, it's kind of a niche, thing. But there's a lot of places where we could serve that's not on, the drums that I would probably be more than capable of.
Opening a door.
Opening a door, greeting, preaching, yeah, all kinds of stuff. That I'm capable and available.
What do you think there's? And I'm throwing these out. You have no idea what I'm going to ask, so I apologize.
Yeah. It's kind of weird talking about someone else's message on Monday Matters, but I'm really glad to be able to do it because, it's great. And Mike hit on this super. It's a simple idea, but it's pretty profound at the same time.
Well, it's definitely one of those that, like, it's a task-oriented in the sense that I need to look into myself to find out where I'm being available, where I'm not. Why am I not available? Is it between my ears? Is it actually a skill set? Or am I just too absorbed in myself? So it's definitely one of those teachings where it hit me multiple times throughout the day yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Where you're all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not being available to my kid right now. My kid's wanting to do this, but I just want to sit on the couch. So, I'm letting my own desire preventing, who knows what I'm preventing or what that could lead down to. So, you start to, am I available? What does available look like? And then at the same point in time, if I'm 100% available, first of all, is that even possible? But there is still life.
Yeah, right.
I still have to go to work. I can't just listen to the Holy Spirit or 24 hours a day. I don't know.
Yeah.
So any insights, any health thoughts?
Yeah. So I think the key oftentimes for us is that as we go through life, we're not available because we are in our own head. We walk into a room and we, as we scan the room, I'm asking questions about all kinds of stuff that are in me, well, who knows what that could be, but it's my issues. I'm thinking about my own insecurities or my argument that I had on the way to church or whatever it is. I mean, I have this list of things that are in my head that are running, and I'm usually not looking for opportunities because I'm busy working through my own stuff. Now, I say me, I think all of us are kind of that way, is we tend to walk through life totally absorbed in our own insecurities or our own obsessions or our own, mind cloud, whatever that could be. And so we miss opportunities oftentimes to be available because we're just busy. It's like something's happening inside. Yeah.
I think especially we have so much information thrown at us.
Yeah.
Whether through the internet, through TV, access to all these things. We probably don't get quiet enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably where you'll hear the calling or where you'll make yourself available. I know.
Yeah, it's easy to be so distracted.
Drive. Yeah, you don't pay attention to things that are going on around you. And I think there's just a ton of things that we miss because we get so absorbed into, I need to cook dinner. I need to do this. I need to do that. Work is causing a problem, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And we just don't stop to listen.
Yeah, so I think there are times, though, that something catches your attention as you're walking around. Something catches your attention, and when it does, pay attention to it and see where it takes you. And I think once we start to develop maybe that muscle or that sensitivity, making ourselves available to this or that, it can make a world of difference because then you'll see it more next time or the time after that. You're driving down the road and somebody's pulled alongside the road. You're trying to get somewhere fast, but you see they have a problem and maybe you could help. Are you available or are you busy going down the road? And not that you have to stop every time, but sometimes you could.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think we had some sermon questions, right? Or some questions that came out that maybe we could look at.
Yeah. So these are some of the possible sermon questions that came from one of the groups that talks. Some of our small groups have sermon questions that they talk through every week, and I really love our sermon-based small groups because they go deeper into the sermon and they kind of plunge the depths of it, and I like that a lot. So Pastor Mike called the apostles a group of misfits, and then the question was, were they qualified, and who would have been better qualified to be a disciple?
They probably weren't, based by our standards, the most qualified people to do it. God obviously chose them for a reason, but they definitely had the available. I mean,
Well, not really.
Got them left though.
I mean, Peter had a wife and a mother-in-law. We know that. He had a fishing business, or at least a boat and nets, but he made himself available in that he stopped what he was doing and left his nets. Yeah.
Pretty much no questions asked.
Right.
Just up and down. It's funny you think about this. Like, if I put myself in his shoes, my wife, my 2 kids, like, I don't know, that's a heck of amount of availability.
Yeah.
Because I definitely would have gotten my own way at that point in time. Well, I need to take care of my wife. I need to take care of my kids.
Right.
When there's actually a bigger plan that I should be paying attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. So were they available? Were they the best qualified? I don't think you're always looking for the best qualified. I think sometimes you're just looking for somebody who has a heart for it, and it depends on the task. A lot of times it's someone who has a heart and the ability to just step in and say, "I'll take care of it. I'll do what you want me to do." And okay, the NFL draft just happened, right?
Yeah.
This weekend, and your team is looking at who's available, who's on, what are my needs and who's available, and so they start. Okay, this person just went off the board. I can't get that person. I can't get this person. I might be able to trade. Who's available? I mean, that's what they're looking for is somebody to play a certain position to fill a need that they have on their team. And you might not always get your very first pick, but you get somebody to fill the need. And everybody has strengths. Everybody has weaknesses. And you choose who you can get sometimes. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, the other thing, though, about that is after spending 3 years with Jesus, who's more qualified?
Nobody at that point.
Nobody,
in time.
yeah. So, I mean, maybe they didn't start off in this highest position, but then they spent 3 years following Jesus, and then, in the book of Acts, they appear, before this. Peter and John have to stand before the Sanhedrin, and the Sanhedrin, the same people who condemned Jesus to death, say, these are unschooled, ordinary men, and they took note that these men had been with Jesus. So they looked at it and they're like, okay, they shouldn't be as good at what they're doing as they are. They've been in the presence of Jesus, and that's changed who they are. So now they're probably nobody more qualified on planet Earth than them. But they didn't start off there.
All because they made a leap and made themselves available. I think that's obviously, I think it's the big takeaway is not letting your own belief in yourself necessarily prevent you from taking that leap.
Yeah. Okay, so think about serving, the opportunities that come along to serve. You're driving down the road. There's a car pulled over, and a little old lady is trying to change her tire. A man who works at Les Schwab drives by and keeps on going. And then there's a guy in a yellow Jeep who works at Blue Mountain Community Church and does the tech. And he's driving down the road, and he sees it, and he might not be as qualified to change a tire as the guy who works at Les Schwab. But, you might be like, I'm available. And that's what's needed. It's not that you have to be able to change tires every day for a living. It's just you have to be willing to help and step into the moment. I really like this simple message that Mike gave, because most things are that way. Now there are some things, like you gave the example of playing a drum. I mean, that's kind of a complicated. Well, for me, it's complicated.
Yeah.
For a drummer, it's not. Yeah, you might not have the the voice where you're the angel, and people walk into the room as you're singing and think, oh, heaven has just come down. But are you willing to get up and sing to God and lead everybody else into worship? And that's what's needed. It's not a voice from heaven. It's just a worshipful attitude to draw people in. Now, at the same time, if you have a voice that makes people cringe, it's probably not the spot for you.
That's why you don't see me on stage singing.
Right. Right. It says Mike's main takeaway was to be available. What does it look like to be available? Available with your time, finances, talents, property. What other items should be on that list? So what does it look like to be available to God?
A willingness, you had to be listening, I think, is to be available, taking opportunities when they come up. It probably depends for each person.
I think sometimes we don't feel like we're qualified because I'm still struggling with this issue in my life, and if I could just get this issue down, or if I could be who I think I should be, then I'll say yes. But I just am not there yet, so I'm not able to say yes.
I know I personally use imposter syndrome all the time for an inability or to making myself unavailable because somehow I don't feel like I'm qualified or I am holy enough or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Or that I am not supposed to be in this position. So I always can I think I put roadblocks up because I'm judging myself. It's not because I think somebody else is necessarily judging me.
Yeah. So you're in your own head, really.
Yeah.
And you're saying, I'm not good enough for this for some reason or another. Yeah.
And I think we worry about people judging in some aspect. We come up with a bunch of excuses. So I think to be available is to get rid of those excuses and say, I don't care what somebody may think about how I sing or how I open a door or whatever it may be. I'm going to put myself up there. I think we're too easy to make our own roadblocks.
Yeah. Okay. So this question asks about your time, about your finances, about your talent, about your property. Let's talk about finances for a minute. Mm-hmm. Okay. Somebody comes to church and a missionary comes. We had the Noctigals in a few weeks ago, and they were going back on the mission field, and they're doing great work. And you'd like to be able to give something to support them in some way. What might be some of those roadblocks?
You have your bills to pay.
There's no money available.
I mean, there's no money available, or some of the other. I want to go on a vacation.
Right.
So then it's things that you want to do, and so those can be roadblocks. And some are good. I mean, you have to have food.
Yeah.
For your family.
And vacations are good. There's nothing wrong with going on vacation, right?
But I don't know that balance, but those are all roadblocks that we come up with. And at some point in time, I think being available is not easy. If it's too easy, maybe you're not doing enough of being available.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
So I spend all my money on things, and typically that's the way it works. You make income and it goes out. No matter how much you make, somehow we're able to spend it all. And the more you make, the more you spend, and it's just that way for most people. So our funds are usually not really available unless we do something to make them available. For example, you might say, okay, I'm going to give a percentage, and it's going to be, I'm just going to budget it in so that it's set aside, it's available for God or for helping some need or something like that, and that takes incredible discipline to be able to do that. But then once you've disciplined yourself, then you live in such a way that it's there,
Yeah.
and you can do it.
I had, I don't know if this is relevant, but I had somebody explain it, like when we talk about tithing, having available funds for tithing and why it's the first 10%. And they put it in so you take a pizza.
Yeah.
And it's easy to give the first piece away, but if you spend the first 9 pieces and you have 1 piece of pizza left, and that's supposed to be, it's really, really hard to give that last piece away when you want it.
Yeah.
So it was, why it's the first 10 and making that available and budgeting that in. I don't know if this is completely relevant to that, but that was an example that someone gave to me as far as why it's the first and how it's actually easier to do it first, because then you have less decision making at the end, and your own selfishness, that's a harsh word, but anyways, comes in.
So, Mike didn't talk about giving.
Yeah.
It wasn't a message about money at all, but it's funny because our money is oftentimes the litmus test of where we are spiritually. Jesus said that no one can serve 2 masters. You will either love one and hate the other, or hate, I can't remember exactly, but you can't serve both God and money, and so it's going to be one or the other. Where am I going with this? So, staying with money just for a second, how many billionaires tithe?
I don't know the answer.
No, I don't either.
I have to
but
assume not many.
Not many. Yeah, I mean, the reality is, the more we make, oftentimes the less we give, because you make, if you've got 1 pizza, it's kind of easy to give a piece away. But if you've got 1,000 pizzas, now suddenly, it's harder to give that because it takes more. Because you're giving more, although percentage-wise it's not more, and you can afford to give more. It's just you're less likely to give. It's funny.
The money is obviously a whole different topic in itself.
Yeah.
And
How do we get on that?
It's some way of making yourself available. It's one of the things we're supposed to do. It just, I don't know. I also sometimes find that sometimes it's easier to write a check than making my time or my talents available.
Okay, let's talk about time. A lot of people are busy. I mean, we're all busy, right? We're so busy. We're busy doing this, that, and the other thing. I mean, there's Netflix and there's Hulu and there's, all of these various streaming services, and I'm pretty busy watching them all. And I totally am making light because actually I'm kind of tongue in cheek on that. We make time for what we value, and sometimes we value things that are really not all that valuable. Now, I'm not saying don't watch Netflix or Hulu or whatever, but sometimes we look and here's a need, and I could step into that need, but I'm so busy. But if we paused and really thought about where we're spending our lives, these few short years we've been given, then maybe my busyness can be more useful in a different direction.
I look at my screen time periodically, and it's like, oh, and you think you're busy.
Yeah. Right.
I've wasted a lot of time, hours doing certain things.
Yeah. Now, some people really, I mean, maybe they're so busy doing all kinds of good in the world that they just don't have time for anything else. And I don't know them. I haven't met them yet, but there's probably someone out there like that, and I applaud them. I think it's great. That's not the average one of us.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah. Talents. Yeah. I mean, I think you touched on the talents. I mean, I think sometimes we don't feel like I have enough talent. Somebody else is more talented at this than I am. And so oftentimes, there's a danger. We were talking just before, there's a danger in having like our musicians at the church being so perfect that nobody else can imagine themselves singing with them because I'm not as good as she is, or I'm not as good as he is. And so we have to kind of evaluate it's not about, this level of perfection as much as it is about just being willing to use your talent.
The term talent itself is intimidating.
Yeah.
When we think it's talent shows, it's,
Right.
So maybe we need to
Right.
look at that a little differently, but
Yeah. All right. Sometimes we forget that we are the only one in our sphere of influence representing Jesus. Mike mentioned having a relationship and conversations with neighbors is evidence of being available. Who is the neighbor in your life? That's a great question. And in a group dynamic, when you're sitting in a group and that question comes up, who is it in my life that I know I probably ought to make some time for that person, or I probably ought to cross the street and go talk to him or her, but it's just easier to get distracted, and my mower needs blades sharpened, or I've got moles in my backyard that I got to deal with, and those are true. Both of those things. I've got moles, and my blades on my mower need sharpened.
moles are a pain.
They are a pain. And they come because you have grubs. You have grubs, then you get moles, and then you get snakes. And then you get birds of prey.
You just have a wildlife backyard.
It's a wildlife backyard. Welcome to my house.
I think I don't know, you watch the sitcoms from way back when. Everybody knew their neighbors.
Yeah.
People hang out in the garage.
Yeah.
I don't know. As I get older, I know one of my neighbors.
You don't what?
I know one of my neighbors.
Oh, I thought you said I don't love my neighbors.
No.
I'm like, geez, dude.
It's a little harsh, but if the 5 houses that I would consider neighbors, I know one.
Yeah.
And I don't even know him that well, but enough that I can say, hey, can you move my trash can? I'm away for whatever reason. But
right.
Community outside of our houses, I feel like we're.
So talking about loving your neighbor, and that it's harder now in a lot of. Well, I actually, maybe that's not true. You were just saying that people used to always know their neighbors, and it was just kind of more natural. And now you only know one of your neighbors, and it's really easy today. The way our homes are built is different. It used to be people had great big front porches, and you'd sit out on your front porch in the cool of the evening. And you had a sidewalk that walked down, and people would go strolling, and they'd say hi to their neighbor, and that was the way your house was designed. But today, we drive and we push the remote control. We drive our car into the garage. We shut it and go into our house and go to the back deck, and we sit on our deck in our private little oasis, which I am as guilty. I mean, we have a private little oasis behind our house. It's beautiful, and I'd rather be back there than in the noisy front with cars going by. But it doesn't lend ourselves well to knowing our neighbor. So,
I always think of it too as we're less reliant on our neighbors.
Yeah.
I think further back. You'd trade amongst each other, or you would need resources. The neighborhood was a group of people that kind of worked together. And I feel like Amazon can ship whatever I really don't have to leave my house.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like in the sense that you can have Amazon come to your door. Like you said, you can pull your car in, and we're less reliant on our neighbors. So therefore we don't make ourselves available. And maybe there's a parallel with God on this, in the sense that as we have more wealth, or as we have more good things happen to us, if you look at how people's faith is based off of their needs, that people have a tendency to, I'm less reliant.
Yeah.
I don't need it. I have doctors that'll take care of my health. You're not waiting for the next famine to come through. Huh. I don't know.
It's good. Just sparked a thought. Studies show that people like you more when they can help you, which I don't get it. I mean, most of us, I don't want to rely on somebody else. I don't want to ask for help. And that's one of my personal issues is I struggle to ask for help because I don't want to be needy and that kind of thing. But one of the things studies says that, you're just more people like you more if you need them to help. And I'm sure that's not like if you're so dependent on them that you can't do anything.
There's probably a switch where it changes.
You're right. Now they're just a needy sucker. But yeah, even going and asking your neighbor for help is a huge step, toward building some kind of a friendship or relationship. Do you remember Home Improvement?
Oh yeah.
Oh. Yeah, and Home Improvement, Tim the Toolman Taylor, and then there was this neighbor, Wilson. No, was it Wilson? Yeah, Wilson, who would stand over and look over the fence, and they never showed his face; they just showed his eyes peeking over the fence, and he would always talk to them. And yeah, that's good. But there was an availability there.
He was available. He just didn't want to be seen.
Yeah. Well, Mike closed the message and said, who needs, how can you be available, and who needs you to be available to them? And I think it's a great question that we should live with and allow that question to soak in, because probably there's all kinds of people who need us. And whether that's, in the church, which it is, or in your neighborhood, which it is, but we need to see if we can let that question rise to the surface and push aside the noise, because there's so much noise. There's so much distraction. There's so much self-doubt. There's so much self-focus that it takes pushing past that and hearing that question and having somebody courageous enough to ask that question and then step into it. I love that. It's great stuff.
It was a very, very powerful and simple message.
Yeah, those are the best ones. Simple is oftentimes the most powerful.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be on my mind for a while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thanks Mike Wallace for sharing that Sunday. And for here's something you don't know. Mike came to me a couple months ago and said, and Mike's a longtime pastor, has served God in so many ways, whether it's speaking or with his hands. I mean, he's a hard-working man with his back. He has served in so many ways. And he came to me and said, if you ever need someone to speak, just let me know. I'm available. I'm available. And so this Sunday, I was expecting to actually not be in town. I knew several of us went to the Church of God convention in California. And so I didn't have any prep time, and I knew that anything I was going to share would be kind of cobbled together on the airplane, and I didn't want to do that. And then I thought about Mike, who said, "Hey, I'm available," and I just asked him, "Hey, would you mind stepping in?" And he did, and he did a great job.
So when somebody made themselves available, is probably the other part, an extent that then you reached out and said, "Hey, this person made themselves available."
Yeah,
and then you gave them that opportunity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It worked out well.
Yeah, that's the other thing is we have to make room for people.
Yeah,
for sure.
Regardless.
Yeah. Good
Awesome.
stuff. Good stuff.
Well, hopefully we don't have to do this very often. JD back here, but I definitely enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully you'll enjoy it too. It's kind of an awkward dynamic in that I didn't preach and you didn't preach, and yet we're talking about a sermon.
Yeah.
Monday Matters.
All right. Monday Matters. Thank you.